Mr. Rao, what do you make of the current situation? Now, whatever's been happening the last couple of days seems to be not cutting any ice with these angry protesters. At any cost, they want both Gotabaya and Ranil Wickremesinghe to step down, so there is no scope of him taking over as the acting president. They want the speaker perhaps to come in and take that post for the meanwhile.
I'm a woman, Miss Rao.
I'm sorry, madam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do want, yes, they do. You know, the problem here is nobody really knows what the crowd wants. You know, we know what the crowd does not want. The crowd does not want anything to have to do with the Rajapaksha clan. That was the first demand. And since Ranil Wickremesinghe was the Prime Minister named by President Rajapaksha, the outgoing president, that is why they are gunning for him also. Also the fact that he has only one seat in Parliament, he does not have the popular vote. But the point is that in a situation like this, somebody has to do something to restore law and order to start with. And the president has sent in a resignation. There are various conflicting reports coming out of Colombo even as we speak. Some of the opposition parties are saying the Sri Lanka's president has left the country without signing a resignation. We had hoped he would send it properly so that we can elect another president. You know, it's up to Parliament. So the Parliament and the all-party conference that happened on Saturday is claiming that what they decide now has validity because the president has left and the Prime Minister has no more validity because he was named by the president. This is what is happening. In the meantime, you're seeing these scenes of people of total anarchy. Now the question is, if these people breach Parliament, if they, take, just like they did to the President's house and to the Prime Minister's residence, if they get that far, what are they going to do? Who is going to be in place? You need a voice of authority in place. Why are these protests happening? They're happening because of a devastating economic crisis. Each and every one of these people on the streets you're seeing have been suffering for months, each and every one of them. No fuel, no gas, no food, no petrol. The anger has reached a boil, that is for sure. But somebody has to take a rational and calm decision now, and one was expecting that the speaker comes out now and strictly speaking, strictly according to the Constitution of Sri Lanka, the Constitution of Sri Lanka says when a president resigns, the Prime Minister has to be acting president till a new president is elected. The speaker came out yesterday, he said he has received the letter from the president and he will be making it public today. He has not done that yet. He has not done that because if he does that, then Ranil Wickremesinghe automatically becomes the president, the acting president. And Ranil Wickremesinghe has not given in his resignation yet for the same reason. Because if he resigns, then he does not automatically become acting president, if the speaker has not announced the resignation of the president yet. So each one is waiting for the other. It is very clear that nobody wants Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to remain in power for 1 minute longer. But the question remains, is begging to be asked, who is going to restore, who in the absence of both a Prime Minister and a President, can Parliament constitutionally take the powers into its own hands? Can an all-party conference on Saturday, take decisions on its own? Is that allowed? Is that embedded and couched within the Constitution of Sri Lanka? It is not. So these are all grey areas. In the meantime, you see that there is an emergency, a curfew has been imposed by
Madam Rao, so when on Saturday, Ranil Wickremesinghe had also come out and said that once the all-party government is formed, I will step down. Was it perhaps a strategy on his part to cling on to power for a while longer, because it comes across as something that's in contradiction to what you're explaining to us?
I will undoubtedly, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe nurtures the ambition of being the president and being elected the president on the 20th of July when a vote is held. And that is, and being acting president now, which the Constitution says a Prime Minister must do, would give him obviously the upper hand, because by the 20th of July he would have already been in the seat of the acting presidency for a certain amount of time. So he hopes that he could by then gather support, of the 40-odd dissenters within Parliament, of various other people who are not strictly with the opposition in terms of thought, and gather their support and remain president. I don't doubt that ambition at all. But this is not the time, neither for Mr. Wickremesinghe nor for anybody else, nor indeed for the opposition, to be seizing constitutionality into their own hands or into their own decisions. One has to keep an eye firmly on the constitution of Sri Lanka. If you are not to be called a banana republic and a totally anarchic failed state, that is something that this highly literate and highly developed country of the most wonderful people urgently needs to avoid.
Dr. Aylan, in that case, what would be the best case political scenario? Because, the opposition parties have been saying that the entire cabinet must step down, and that's essentially going to pave way for an all-party government. Is that the best possible political scenario, way forward?
Yeah, that's exactly the best political way forward, that we form an interim government with all the parliament. Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed Prime Minister. It was very unfortunate. That was almost an act of banana republic, where even though he had no legitimacy. He was brought in as to create a deal with Gotabaya Rajapaksa and to save the Rajapaksha. So what we are seeing in Sri Lanka is not a republic in that sense. We are seeing a people's upsurge in democracy, a process of democratization that is going on, which the rest can also learn from. The kind of political leaders that we've had in South Asia, the kind of authoritarian populism that has put them in, has divided people, own self-interest. So I think this process is the kind of democratic changes that are coming in, because the political class and the political elite in Sri Lanka have failed. And that is what the streets and trying to show to the world, that this needs to change, that we need to credible leadership, and without a leadership, there's no way we can move out of this crisis. Just talking to international actors and diplomats is not going to stay in over the last 2 months, Sri Lanka.
Madam Rao, in that sense, do you see an opposition strategy also at play here? Because, opposition leader Premadasa Rao, now remember, is a nemesis of Wickremesinghe, and at no cost would he want him to continue or even take up the position as an acting president.
Look, it's not just Mr. Premadasa alone. You're right that he departed from the party and all that. Before I go down that road, I just wanted to revert, refer to what Ahilan just said.
Sure.
Hi, Ahilan. The Banana Republic, what I said is, I think you misunderstood. What I said is that if this movement goes in the direction of anarchy and violence and arson and looting and vandalism, which it already has to a certain extent in certain pockets, right? Then you run this risk. May I just finish? Then you run the risk.
All right, I'm going to have to interrupt both of you. I'll come back to you in just a bit. Picking in our breaking news import, protesters have stormed into the National TV tower now. That's an update our colleague on ground, Priyank, is sending us, that protesters have stormed into the TV Corporation, which is the national broadcaster there. I'd quickly like Dr. Aylan to come into the conversation and just explain to us what this could mean, because we're seeing them storm the presidential palace, the private residence of Ranil Wickremesinghe, today the official residence as well, and also the Parliament House. But now it's reached the National TV tower. The agitation.
The reason for this is that state power has been diverted consistently, whether it's media, whether it's the repressive apparatus of the state. Ranil Wickremesinghe has just called for a curfew. He has no authority to impose a curfew. It's not even be made a president be able to do that. So state power is constantly being diverted and confronted by people's power. And this is a political crisis. There is a contradiction. We have a constitution, but the constitution has been consistently diverted by those in power and speaking out. And so all these institutions, and the protest happened on Saturday, they tried to gain what they call police curfew.
So the crisis is certainly deepening. I appreciate both of you. I'm afraid I'm running out of time. Dr. Aylan, thank you for speaking to us. Also thanking Madam Rao for sharing all those important details and putting that in perspective for our viewers this afternoon.